But we keep 150 prototypes on display here. So every piece you're seeing in here is the first of that piece I ever made. And then when somebody wants a linen press, then they say, okay, well, make mine 6 inches taller. I'm just showing the typical size from that era. And then they walk around and go, I like this wood, I like that color, I like those hinges. And then we just sketch it out and they go on a waiting list. And that's the really good news here. We haven't seen the end of the waiting list in over 20 years. Yeah. I got close during COVID. We went a year without tourists. We got within a week twice, but for years, we're 6 months out typically. We got 2 big king-size beds going this week. We're about 90% on. So here's a good example of that through tendon again. And then I'll be putting a wedge in here to hold it on. That's how you do that without any nails or screws. But that's the difference between this bed and that bed. I don't have a cap on it yet. Now this is the only professional theater company in the western half of Iowa. This is my night job. So during the day we build furniture and at night we build professional musicals. Yeah, I know. I have 2 artistic loves and how blessed that I get to do both. We have 140 built-in seats, including a balcony up top. They're all built in from scratch. There was nothing here but a concrete floor. We've added the 6,000 feet of flooring above your head here. There's themed dining rooms upstairs. Sometimes we serve meals with our shows. And each one of those dining rooms is one of the shows we've done in the past where we rebuilt that set as a themed dining room. We have a 2-level stage. We do scenes and sets on both levels. I guess what we're really known here for, of course, only musicals, but things running on Broadway this year is typically what we're doing next year here. We're almost always the Midwest premiere after they close on Broadway. 6 of our last 10 shows, we had it before Chicago or Minneapolis or Kansas City. And Jefferson, Iowa. And we've been the national premiere in this room twice. We're getting ready right now. We're 3 weeks out today from putting on Rocky, the musical. And so we've been in training boxing here for the last 10 weeks. It's been something. It's been a ride. I don't know. We think we might have invented this. We're calling them a pinwheel set. So that's Rocky's apartment there. And then that entire wall spins and shows another. So there's 3 walls on each side. So there's 6 total rooms built into the set that all we have to do is spin and then add pieces like couches and things to the rooms. It works really, really well for us. And like most shows, we're doing a show. It took 40 people on Broadway to do, and we're doing it with 15 people. And everybody has to be able to play 2 or 3 characters, which means you have to be a trained actor. You have to be able to do multiple voices and multiple acting styles, and that's part of our gig here. We train, we teach, we make everybody go through my acting course and my workshops, and lots of times people understudy for a role or 2 before they're ready. But maintaining a professional theater in a 3,500 person town has been the challenge. You run out of resources just instantly. You run out of people. So I'm always begging my theater friends from Des Moines and Ames to, come take a lead. And then we've built this core of locals into people that can, good ensemble, good secondary characters. I only take a lead every 4 or 5 years just because people don't want the same person always out in front. But we have said this is our last show. Rocky is our farewell, our goodbye. And so I wasn't going to pass that one up. So I'm getting to play Rocky, and that's been very fun. Yeah.
Let's hear it, Adrian.
Yeah, Adrian. but I'm not doing a heavy Sylvester Stallone, impression. But yeah, it'll be a little bit, it's Philly, it's use and yeah. You say I got bad footwork, I want to know why.
What else have you done? What other shows?
Well, you can see on the walls here, 17 years, 30 full-scale musicals. I'll bet you didn't know Oklahoma had a sequel, Oklahoma 2, because it didn't. That was 2 of us doing the entire show, Oklahoma. We each played 14 characters, 14 voices, 14 acting styles. And but we were the national premiere. There's one of our national premieres there, Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson, a really big deal on Broadway. There was a 6-month wait on Broadway to see that show when it came out. And we were the national premiere after it closed. Yeah. And, we just did Bridges in Madison County here 2 years ago, and we had an 11-piece string orchestra. Both of our leads came from 80 miles away because, there's probably 3 women in Iowa that could have handled that role. It's that difficult of a role to play Francesca in Bridges in Madison County. And 2 out of the 3 showed up at our audition. And so I was able to have 2 Francescas, and every other night they got to take turns and have a fresh voice. And that worked out great. But we're always pushing on the shows that people didn't hear of, every one of these had a Broadway run. Like, Lizzie's a good example. Lizzie was a hard rock musical about Lizzie Borden. Of course, who killed her parents with an axe. Which, by the way, they had it coming. And but we were the 3rd theater in the world to do that show, and then 4 years later it got to Broadway. So we were in the front of that. I think my favorite theater story. Well, here's one. Hands on a Hard Body is those old contests at car dealerships where they pick 10 guys out of a hat, and then all 10 of them had to stand there and hold on to the truck. Last one standing got to win the truck. And so they wrote this beautiful musical about how important to each of these persons' life it was to win this truck. And over the course of 48 hours, they all fell off. But we did this bluegrass musical called Golden Boy the Blue Ridge. We were the national premiere after a 6-month run on Broadway. And the guy flew me out to New York to have meetings with him. I know. And I'm just a small town kid from Iowa with his lemonade stand, theater. But I love it and I care. And we have meetings and we decide some stuff and we're putting it on. And he was going to try to come. And we were going to make a whole weekend out of Meet the Writer and all that kind of stuff. And it didn't end up working out with his schedule. But he sent his mother-in-law. His mother-in-law drove all the way from Michigan just to come see us. I think she was checking up on us. Is what really was happening there, to see how well we did. But I get a call from Pete Mills, the writer, on Monday morning after we opened. And he'd always been the sweetest guy, advice and nicety. And then all of a sudden, he was terse on the phone. He was like, Robby! I was like, oh, God, what did we do? He says, what's this I hear? And he's a theater guy, so he puts a long dramatic pause here. That your set was better than ours. That's what you want to hear. I mean, that's a touchdown. That's as good as it gets in theater. Because they'd had a budget, a Broadway budget. And what do we have? Well, it called for a log cabin. Well, I know how to build a log cabin. I don't know. The best thing I ever did was not go to school for theater. Yeah, because I don't know how to build a styrofoam log cabin. I know how to build a log cabin. And so we build real sets is what we try to do here. We had a grass-covered hill that connected our 2 levels and a working water wheel that ran the grist mill and steam coming out of our, and fire in the fireplace. And, when it's your building, you can do anything you want to. Usually there's curtains here on the sides, but this is 1975 Philadelphia, and I want people to, even in our peripheral, I don't need them to pretend only from here to here. I want them to feel like they're in 1975 Philadelphia. So we've been building this entire wall all the way across the stage. And we'll immerse them in it. Hopefully they're chanting, Rocky, Rocky. Yeah, during that final fight, that'll be the goal.